Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of CEOs You Should Know. I am Steve Delasan, and I'm thrilled to be joined by Dr. Gupta, the founder, chairman, and CEO of Unicycive Therapeutics.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Gupta, thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you for having me.
We're excited to jump into the conversation. Why don't we kick it off by sharing a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. Steve, I'm a trained physician, did clinical medicine, did my internship, residency, fellowship, all right here. We are recording in New York City. I'm trained, was attending physician at NYU School of Medicine. I was attending physician as well as faculty at the School of Medicine. I also have a graduate degree in finance, in healthcare finance and management. I started my career initially working with a biotech company as an advisor to them to run their clinical trial. From there, I went to work on Wall Street as an analyst. I covered biotech stocks and then I covered pharmaceutical stocks. Moved to California, worked for Genentech and corporate strategy, founded two companies, and Unicycive is my third company. I founded the company and was fortunate to take it public, and we are currently working on our two drugs in development for treatment of kidney diseases.
Wow, that's exciting. Very impressive background.
Thank you.
And I know that you're a trained physician before you moved into the biotech and entrepreneur space. What inspired that transition?
Absolutely. Steve, as a physician, I sat down or spent nights in ICU taking care of patients. And one of the commonest theme I found by talking to these patients over the years that almost everyone, when they are sick and they're towards the last stage of their life, they have regrets. And one common theme that I found, which is consistently talked about in many other places, is the regret of not trying something or regret of not taking in either a risk or an effort that they wanted to do. Over the course of a decade, as a physician, I found that most of my time as a clinician was spent on doing things that were not related to patient care. I loved patient care, but I felt that a practice of medicine, at least as I was practicing in New York at NYU, was more geared towards other parts of healthcare.
Sure.
So I wanted to do something better with my life, and that sort of inspired me to focus on innovation. And I had a degree in finance, so I thought, what if I could take innovations that are happening all over the world and bring them into real product, real opportunities that can affect patients' life?
I love that. Super inspiring. Great
Thank
to
you.
see that you're able to do that. Looking back, what experiences do you think really shaped your leadership philosophy?
There are three or four key themes that I consistently come back to. One is that in order for someone to lead, you have to lead yourself. As a physician, we have to instill confidence in patients. Physicians were supposed to be healer or educator for patients. As you know, our modern medicine does not really come anywhere close to it. We more often than not trying to fix the problem that patients have. But the first one foremost is to lead yourself before you can lead somebody else. The second one is that as a physician, if I just go rely on my medical experience, even though I practice as a physician, but I relied on my allied healthcare professionals, so my nursing staff, my nursing aides, because if I gave a prescription to a patient overnight, I took care of patients in cardiovascular unit, cardiac rehab. They have medicines that are going to drop their blood pressure. You need nurses and nursing aid to make sure that the patients don't get up on their own without proper precaution. So it's about being able to ally yourself with the team around you. And number three, and most important in my mind, is that have a deeper purpose. The organizations, the companies that are built on purpose, they tend to become successful versus focusing on the next shiny thing, including the financial rewards.
For sure. That's great advice. Great philosophy to have. I'm sure along the way there may have been people that have inspired and influenced you. Looking back, who has been the biggest influences or mentors within the business or science space?
I don't have one mentor. I
Sure.
have mentors, Steve, and this is something which I learned. I found people who have been prior CEOs of public companies in biotech space. I've been influenced and mentored by investors. Some of them way back in time before I even founded the company Unicycive. They gave me advice that helped me to shape how I think about our pipeline drugs. And then there are investors, along with the investment bankers, advisors, who have played a key role into building the company, also giving me advice about how should we think about financing, advancing the company as well as growth of the company. So it's a series of people, and the only advice I can give surround yourself with as many people as possible, people whom you respect, feel inspired by. And the only observation I can make that many of them have given me something that I can't pay them back. So in order to fulfill that cycle, if you're a karmic cycle, I try to advise our mentor, many
Awesome.
startups at Stanford. It's a pro bono work. Every quarter, at least one company I advise, and with the idea that I've received advice and help from people that I cannot pay them back.
I love that. I think mentorship is so important. And to your point, you don't know everything, right? So it's always important to be able to lean in on that trusted circle that you have,
Absolutely.
and even more important to pay it forward. So
Yeah.
I love that philosophy.
Thank you.
I know we talked a little bit earlier about your background, but looking back, was there one pivotal moment that really brought you to Unicycive?
I think I practice in cardiology, which I talked about earlier. One of the common problems for patients who suffer from kidney disease is that the one commonest cause of mortality and morbidity for kidney patients happens in cardiology.
Wow.
Having seen patients in cardiac rehab, I saw patients who have these debilitating conditions. For example, many of the number one cause of chronic kidney disease is diabetes.
Hmm.
So these patients suffer from myriads of diseases, if you will. CKD or chronic kidney disease is not one thing they suffer from. So understanding that these patients are managing not one disease, one diagnosis, if you will, but five or six of diagnoses together
Sure.
made me appreciate and realize that their pain point is very different than one may imagine, because the commonest problem these patients have, they are taking a number of medications per day, on an average 20 to 30 pills per day,
It's
and half
wild.
of them because of their phosphate control. And that's what gave me the insight. I am not a nephrologist, so I didn't really understand the dialysis patient's problem, but I had seen these patients, patients who are in chronic conditions, they suffer from many comorbidities. So understanding that landscape, understanding that how as a clinician I saw these patients gave me perspective to understand that if we could solve their biggest problem, the one that they suffer, we probably have a product, we have something that we can create a solution and create a company around it.
It's an awesome philosophy. It's so interesting that's such a complex world, like you said, that these people are having maybe like multiple treatments that you're trying to help solve. So that's an awesome background. Those are listeners that are tuning in that might not really know what the Unicycive is.
Yeah,
Can you give a snapshot of what the company does and what it means?
absolutely. Unicycive is a publicly listed company. Our lead treatment or lead drug that is pending FDA approval is oxylanthanum carbonate. The drug addresses high phosphate. This is a problem that patients on dialysis suffer from. There are roughly 550,000 patients who are on dialysis every year. 80% of them need something to manage their phosphate. Phosphate is not a problem for people who have otherwise normal kidney function, but for these patients who cannot excrete phosphate, phosphate combines with calcium causes them to die from heart attack or causes bone fracture. So to summarize, 550,000 patients on dialysis, 80% of them, that's 450,000 or so, or north of that, who need something to manage their phosphate. Six approved drugs on the market, yet over decades, people have not been able to achieve their target serum phosphate. And the reason is
It's
because of
wild.
three problems that exist with the current treatment. And those three problems are they take large number of pills. So we talked about pill burden. Or if they don't take large number of pills, they take large pills in size. That's number two. And number three is that these large pills that they take, they have to be chewed. So you're asking somebody to chew one or two pills after each meal. And imagine these are large pill, and you may say, well, I don't really care. And that may be just the way you think about it.
Sure.
But we are asking these patients to chew these pills after every meal and not for 1 or 2 days, not 1 or 2 months. We're asking them to do for the rest of their life. These pills taste horrible because they are made of metal, and you're asking people to chew metal.
Yeah.
So if I ask you after every breakfast, please chew a large size pill of which full of metal, you would realize you feel defeated, and many of
Yeah.
these patients don't want to take these pills.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really putting that patient mindset first. It sounds like the approach that you guys are going for.
So our solution with OLC, if approved, this offers a best-in-class solution. And what we are offering patients is the ability to take one small pill they can swallow, And this is the size of the pill is remarkable. It's the size of baby aspirin, around that size.
Oh, wow.
And they can take the pill, one pill with each meal, and that solves their patient's problem. We ran a clinical trial. Roughly 70% of patients can be managed with one pill or less with 3 times a day. And if there are patients who need more than that, they can take more than one pill, but again, they can swallow. And the size of pill does matter. And these patients, again, they're taking these pills over a long period of time.
It's going to be a game changer and you're going to help change millions of lives.
Absolutely.
That's great. What personally attracted you to focus on kidney disease as an area of unmet needs?
Steve, when you think about medicine, we have made tremendous improvement. So I'll take oncology or cancer treatment as an
Sure.
example. We still have more treatments necessary for cancer treatment, but in kidney diseases, unfortunately, the bar hasn't shifted that much.
Hmm.
Off late, there have been one or two new drugs that are coming up, but it's still the innovation, the pace of innovation has not happened that fast. And I felt there was an opportunity to focus on a disease area that wasn't well addressed.
That's awesome. As a CEO of a public biotech company, how do you balance that scientific vision with your financial background with that business execution side of the business?
I think one has to be very disciplined
Sure.
because I always say there are three stakeholders that we serve as a company, as a CEO. One is an investor. Without their investment, there is no organization. Second is patients. Without the patients making a difference for patient, we can't really make a
Mhm.
difference. And third is physicians or healthcare professionals. If we have a solution that physicians or healthcare professionals are able to prescribe or be able to advocate for, then the patients will get that treatment or intervention. So these are the three stakeholders we serve. And if we are disciplined, we focus on the ultimate vision of bringing the drug to market and then launching the drug. That is the next thing I would love to talk about. We, as a small company, we believe there
Yeah.
is an opportunity to launch this drug, and we can launch the drug. And that is how we make all these three stakeholders win. Physicians win because they have a treatment, patients win because they have a solution that they can take, investors because they gave us a risk capital and they believe in us. So we can execute on all three stakeholders.
That's awesome. And speaking of the drug itself, let's talk a little bit about the science and your lead therapy, OLC. How does that stand out compared to other drugs that are out there?
So we have run three different clinical trials in this drug. Two of them were in healthy volunteers, and the last one we ran, which we call pivotal clinical trial, was on patients. To summarize, our drug offers best-in-class efficacy potential.
Hmm.
More specifically, without making broader claims, let me focus on the last clinical trial data. Um, Before I go into it, I'll caution it was a single arm trial, and which means it was not randomized, it wasn't compared with anything because these patients were on a standard of care and they were switched over on our drug. That's number one. And the other part is a smaller patient population. It was 86 patients who were given the drug. Having said those caveats, the trial showed something really impressive. As an example, our drug was given to patients who were previously on a standard of care. When they were given a standard of care, only 51% of patients were able to achieve their target serum phosphate.
Okay.
When they were given our drug over 6 weeks, that efficacy on number of patients who were able to achieve target serum phosphate level improved to 90%.
Wow. So 51 to 90%.
That is a 40% improvement, or roughly
Yeah.
40% improvement. And I understand it's in a very small patient population, so
Still.
86. But as you said, it's still, that was remarkable. Number two, as I talked about the 70% of patients, going in, we assumed that patients may have to take one pill or two pill. But what we found, roughly 69% of patients were able to take either one pill with each meal or less.
Wow.
So that makes a second surprise for us and
Yeah.
positively. And number three was that when you look at adverse event profile, again, this clinical trial showed the only two adverse events that were noted. One was the diarrhea of 9% and vomiting of 6%. And the reason I bring this up because patients were able to tolerate this drug better than anything else we have seen in the clinical trial data. And our vision is that as we get approval, we bring this drug to market. We want to be able to find a way to give this drug to as many people as necessary.
Yeah.
They can take it. And patients are really looking for a solution.
100%. It's inspiring not just to see the results of the drug, but also improving the patient's quality of life. Like you said, they had to chew the pills that currently taste like metal, and to be able to go down to one, or some situations, none, could be life changing for those
Yeah,
patients.
absolutely. Yeah.
That's awesome. I know the FDA recently issued a complete response letter for OLC. Can you walk us through what happened and how the company is currently addressing it?
Yes, this was a disappointment or a setback for the company.
Sure.
CRL is like getting to the last stage and then being asked to do something else. On the flip side, that complete response letter cited only one deficiency. And I think I'll talk about that deficiency in a minute. Before we talk about the deficiency, I want to call out that FDA had no questions about preclinical safety, safety in general, efficacy, clinical trial, or anything else.
That's great to hear. Yeah.
This was manufacturing. It was a third-party manufacturing. That wasn't even our primary manufacturer. It was a manufacturing that takes the powder, puts into pill, as in tableting. And we have identified a second manufacturer that has already made a commercial grade product. Our current plan is to meet with the agency, find which is the shortest, best possible way to get the drug to the market. And we believe in partnership with the agency. We feel that their goal and our goals are aligned to bring the drug as quickly as possible. So I feel very confident to working with the agency. We'll
That's
figure
great.
out what is the best way to get the drug approval.
That's awesome to hear. How do you think about innovation in biotech, balancing bold breakthroughs, but also having that practical realities of the regulations and the commercialization of the industry?
There are many ways you can create innovation, Steve. There are innovations that take a decade, 2 decades, and they will eventually make it to the market. And many of them require a different type of investment, different type of time horizon. There are other innovations that address market need, and again, they are focused on complete breakthrough or paradigm shift. But the third type of innovations are there. There is an unmet need. People understand regulatory pathway. There is a well-defined mechanism of action, but there is still something missing. We have focused our path on the third category. It seems in some ways is incremental innovation, and I acknowledge that. But what it does do is that you can focus on creating a solution in a very short period of time with a smaller capital requirement. And all three of them are necessary. I'm not here to tell you the third one is the
Yep.
only one better. I think it's up to the individuals and the teams and the companies and their investors to decide what is best for them. Companies like Moderna took a decade before they had a product. Fortunately for them and for the world, they had a solution. They were working on mRNA technology, and the moment COVID came, they were able to create a solution. We all play a
Sure.
role in ecosystem. I found that being able to focus on the third category, where there is a very definite unmet need, regulatory pathway is clear, we understand mechanism of action or target, we can create a solution and bring it to market.
That's great to hear. Now, I know kidney disease affects 1 out of every 7 U.S. adults. And I think something surprising for me was 90% is undiagnosed. How big of a healthcare challenge are we really talking about when we look at kidney disease as a whole?
You see, it's a big problem. The biggest problem is that many of the patients or people who suffer from chronic kidney disease, they don't know they have a problem.
Yeah.
And many times, or quite often, these patients will find out by doing routine blood work. In the initial stages of CKD, there is no symptoms. And you may say, well, there are no symptoms, so there is no problem, but that's not the way it is. Over years and sometimes over decades, these patients then eventually go into chronic kidney disease at the last stage, which is dialysis. Once the patients are on dialysis, the only thing that is there as a hope for them is getting organ transplant. And as you probably know, kidneys, there are not enough kidneys to go around. That's number
Yeah.
one. And number two, not everybody is a candidate for organ transplant either.
Yep.
So we are living in a world where people suffer from diabetes, from heart problems, and ultimately all of these conditions cause chronic kidney disease.
Yep. I know we just talked about innovation a little bit from that perspective, but looking at the kidney care industry as a whole, what are some of the biggest barriers to innovation within kidney care, and how are you really working to overcome those?
I think when you think about chronic kidney disease, it's not just a question about the kidney problem, but also where their care is given, how their care is supported.
Hmm.
I think the government is doing a lot of new incentives and programs to help these patients, but we would need to start much earlier in the intervention
Yep,
paradigm.
makes sense.
It will be ideal if we can stop chronic kidney disease from progressing from stage one to stage two, because when you start to go stage 3B or beyond, then it becomes really hard to avert that. It requires lifestyle modifications. Believe it or not, the best thing to treat something is to never have that disease happen. And there is a work that can be done. There is work that is being
Catch it
done.
early on.
Catch early on.
Yeah.
The second part is that there are new interventions that are coming up. For example, GLP-1s are not only treatment for diabetes, but they're also helping with the improvement of kidney
Wow.
diseases. And number three is that just awareness. I think creating more awareness in people, in society at large, will be helpful.
Great point. Looking at, I know we're in the early stages, but looking at Unicisive, what is success look like for you 3 to 5 years from now?
The biggest thing that I think about every single day at the moment is to get our drug approved and then be able to launch it. I want to tell you that commercial launches are hard for any company. Launching
Yep.
a product in the US in a regulated markets are hard. But we find ourselves in a unique place that because this particular disease category, there are fewer number of physicians who prescribe it. You can launch a drug with a small company. As an example, we know there are 2,100 physicians who prescribe roughly 50% of phosphate lowering therapy. We know who they are. We know geographically where they're located.
Wow.
We have reached out to as many of those 2,100 physicians as of now. The goal is not to wait for approval, because approval allows you to be able to potentially sell and they can
Sure.
prescribe the drug, but to create awareness.
Yep.
And before even the company became as an existing company, a publicly traded company, I had gone out to meet with hundreds of nephrologists. Today, we are doing three things before the approval, and then we can talk about approval and launch. Number one, we are going into talking to as many of those physicians as possible as part of advisory board, ad board. Number two, we are going into medical conferences and presenting clinical data, because the best way to create awareness is to get peer-reviewed publication.
Yep.
Most recently, we had a publication in Clinical Journal of American Society of Nephrology, CJASN, which is one of the most reputable journals out there. And number three is that we are talking to the not just publication, but also at the various medical conferences, focus on nephrologists, allied healthcare professionals, for example, dietitian,
Mm,
nurses who
makes
play a
sense.
role in care,
Yeah.
and also patient-focused
Yep.
conferences. So the idea is to create enough awareness when the product is available. You have the pull part from the market.
Yeah.
People want to get on the drug, and we see that
Yep.
today. The commonest feedback I get from nephrologists is that it's no-brainer.
Yeah. Sounds like it to me. It's about educating them so as soon as it's approved, they're able to jump on it immediately and improve those patients' lives.
Correct, correct.
So looking even further out, if you were to look a decade ahead, what role would Unicisive play in reshaping kidney disease treatment?
A decade from now, let's say a longer term time horizon, we believe we have an opportunity to bring our first drug into market, advance a second drug, which is a finished phase one clinical trial focused on acute kidney injury, and continue to focus on our attention and kidney treatment in general. There's a continuum of care. We can stop CKD from happening.
Hmm.
We can encourage patients from, not ever go from stage 3B or to stage 4. And our second drug has a promise to treat acute kidney injury, which is effectively, there's nothing available to be able to treat those patients.
Makes sense. I know we talked about this a little bit, but you guys are a publicly traded company. What should investors know about the story right now?
I think we have very near-term milestones. Our refiling for NDA,
Hmm.
getting our next PDUFA date, which is a approval date from FDA, then getting approval, and then commercially launching the drug. These are very exciting times. It is something that we feel really, really excited and looking forward to it.
It's awesome. And speaking of looking forward to the future, what role do partnerships and collaborations play within your growth strategy?
We believe that if you are focused on bringing the drug to market, you want to do the right thing by the patients, physicians, and investors. The partnership is definitely something we are always open about. More importantly, I'll call out that we already have partnerships in China. We have partnerships in
Awesome.
South Korea. And the idea was from very beginning, very clear to us that a small company, we will never be able to commercialize in every single part of the world. So we've done partnerships outside US. Currently, we are talking to dialysis organizations who play a huge role in terms of taking care of these patients. So many form of partnership, but collaboration is the way to be able to bring the product.
That's awesome. Dr. Gupta, it sounds like you're a very busy man, right? Going over the different challenges of different approvals, networking, making sure that you have all those relationships in place. How do you personally stay resilient and focused in such a high stakes environment?
You see, one of the best thing about my job is that I get to work with people who are all motivated towards a common goal. We have a team of roughly 22 full-time employees at the moment, and 22 seems like a small number, but we have been able to get the drug to market, to file for approval. So working with the smart people who are common focus. And the other part is that I've done many parts of my career, many different roles. This is one thing I feel that is my calling, my mission.
Love that.
I feel very inspired to be able to do that. And anything else that is out there, whether it's challenges or feeling burnt out, I have other places. I focus on my family. I have other hobbies. I do keep myself physically fit and active.
Yeah.
So I definitely believe those are the ways to be able to manage that. But this is not something that I'm doing for the next inflection point. I think this is something we believe in. I believe in my heart of heart. So I love what I do every day.
That's important. A team is so important to have a strong team around you. But I think that even throughout this whole conversation, your passion for what you're doing definitely comes through. So that is extremely crucial. And you could definitely tell that you have a deep passion for what you're doing right now.
Thank you.
Looking back, what is maybe one mistake or setback, whether it's in your current role or previous roles, that really taught you a lesson?
I think it's about building the team, finding the right people, and not just the right people, but growing the team as you go along. I continuously find that even if a team is performing at their very peak, I don't take it for granted. The goal is to always look for challenges that might be, you may be seeing around down the horizon. So commercializing a drug. So we are currently thinking about building our commercial team, adding the team adequately, building the right people so that there are building blocks. Start with the foundation and then build upon on those foundation blocks. It's been something which has been a learning experience, and I
Yeah.
think this is the calmness, one of the biggest challenge that any CEO will face. So you can also overbuild. You can hire too many people too
Hmm.
quickly, and that has
Scale
its
too
own
quickly.
challenges.
And
Yeah.
yeah, completely agree. I always love asking this for every guest that sits down with me. What advice would you give future biotech entrepreneurs or physician scientists that are looking to make an impact? Maybe look back that something you wish you knew back then when you first were starting out.
So I talk about three things, and it doesn't mean that I don't have it, but these are three things you have to keep in mind. For anyone, it doesn't matter the entrepreneurship in biotech or healthcare, just entrepreneurs in general. Number one is the perseverance. Without perseverance, you will never make it because there will be obstacles, and sometimes it requires you to just push through it. Number two is patience. I wish I had a little bit more patience because sometimes you want things to be solved tomorrow, and it will take a little bit longer. Anything of value takes time to create, and you have to have patience. And the third thing is that it's personal. Each one of us have our own level of faith, but having a faith because you are going to create something, it will be full of chaos in the beginning. And as you grow, there'll be more challenges, and faith helps you to overcome those challenges because you have an internal vision how you want it to come to reality. I think these are the three things that I remind myself. Perseverance, I've never had a problem. Patience, I've learned over time. And faith is something today we want to launch the drug in the US market. Having that very clear vision, how we can launch it, how we can successfully create a value for patients, physicians, and investors is something I keep in mind.
I love that. That's something you can't teach. So it's great advice for anyone that's tuning in. So, looking ahead, what is one thing you want people to most remember about Unicisive and what the mission is?
I think there is one thing I could tell you is that we are able to bring potential best-in-class drug, if approved, offers a solution to patients that people have not been able to find. After six drugs on the market, 75% of patients of if you go with the strict criteria or if you go more lenient criteria, 44% patients are not able to meet their target serum phosphate level. We believe we have an opportunity to make a difference. It's a commercially viable opportunity. There's a roughly $1.5 billion sales of these drugs every year. And the third thing is that we feel this is driven by the need, patients need, physicians desire, and can't wait to work with everybody, bring this drug to market.
We love that. Dr. Gupta, we covered a lot today. Is there anything you feel like we might have missed that you want our listeners to know?
No, I think I appreciate your time
Of
and I
course.
appreciate listeners who are tuning in. Thank you very much.
We appreciate you. Dr. Gupta, thank you so much for taking us through your background, telling us the story and the why and why Unicycive was created. And we're really looking forward to when it's approved and the millions of lives you're going to be able to change within the kidney disease.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
having me.
And thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this week's edition of CEOs You Should Know.